Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 356. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's cracking?
Connor's not here. He was supposed to be here, but informed us very last minute that he could not make it. So,
Something about being chased by a pack of wild dogs.
no, one tiny dog that's not threatening at all, but somehow he will still break his arm.
Right, we know that, but when he says a pack of dogs, it's just assuming it's, puppies from the store.
So, yeah, this is the DC Comics podcast. We get together, we talk about the comics we read this week. Coming up on this week's show, we have Green Lantern issue 1, we have Superman Lost issue 3, Spirit World issue 1, Stargirl and the Lost Children issue 6, Danger Street issue 6, and I've got a Patreon book to talk about, which is Batman and the Outsiders issue 3. So that's what's coming up on the week's show. A couple of interesting things in there. There's a little bit of news as well, but of course, there is always time for ComiXology Top 10. Isn't that right, Matt?
Yep.
Oh, he sounds so defeated. I love it. Alright, so we'll look at Tuesday's current rankings right now, because they're split by Tuesday and Wednesday for whatever reason.
Yep.
So, alright. Number 1 book from Tuesday, as of right now on ComiXology, Matt. What do you think it is?
Green Lantern number 1.
It is! Very good. So, yeah, Green Lantern issue 1 is number 1. Number 2 is Superman Lost. Number 3 is Batman White Knight Presents Generation Joker. Number 4 is Stargirl, The Lost Children. Number 5 is Danger Street. Number 6 is Wildcats. Number 7 is Spirit World. And number 8 is Batman Incorporated. Number 9 is Batman The Adventures Continues, and number 10 is Sandman Universe Nightmare Country. So that's pretty much all the major single issues in that top 10. Pretty much right after that, we were into the trades and collections and stuff. Notably, the newest Tom Taylor Superman trade and the Champion of Shazam collection, both out this past week. So, yeah, nothing super surprising. Green Lantern's a big enough character to get an issue 1, particularly on a week that doesn't have a Batman book. It means that it probably is number 1.
And the fact that it's been a while since there's been a published Green Lantern book.
It's not really been that long.
Been quite a few months since that John book ended.
Yeah, months, but not.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get a new number 1 for a character that's not been around in years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, but Green Lantern's always one of those ones that it just feels like it can carry multiple books. So when there's not one, it's weird. Never fails.
Dogs did alright, I guess?
Yeah, they're fine. Wife just came back from under the store, so they get excited.
Very good, very good. So, anywho, we'll look at Wednesday's books as well, see how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Wednesday's books, what do you think number 1 is, Matt?
I'm looking to see if there's some, new X-Men initiative before, because that's my go-to, which my friend on Free Comic Book Day, who's a massive X-Men fan, gave me the Cliff's Notes of what's been going on. So now I understand what Sins of Sinister was. Did I retain any of it? Not really, because it was a lot at one time. But my guess is going to be X-Men Red, number 11, as number 1.
That is correct. I would argue if you didn't retain any of it, then you don't really understand it. But
I understood it in the time, and there's apparently there's 4 different Sinisters, each of a different card suit, and each of them have a different set of cloning philosophies. It's like there's one with our Mr. Sinister that we're used to has the diamond. There's one with a heart. There's one with a club. There's one with a spade. And now it just seems like it's when they were dropping all the lantern stuff on us. So it's just a lot. But it was interesting in the moment.
Okay. But X-Men Red's number 1. Number 2 is Amazing Spider-Man.
25?
25, yeah.
It's like a JR cover.
It does look like that, doesn't it? Yeah. Why is the 2.5 so big on the cover of that one? That's weird.
Yeah.
Number 3 is number 3 is Wolverine issue 33. Sorry. Number 4 is Saga issue 64. So that's still going strong. Daredevil 11 is number 5. Number 6 is Nemesis Reloaded, issue 5.
Man, Mark Miller just sells, doesn't he?
Well, speaking of, number 7, The Ambassadors, issue 4, also Mark Miller. So that's 3 non-Marvel books so far out of the first 7.
Yeah.
That's not bad. So the rest are Marvel, admittedly, but still, three's pretty good. Number 8 is Invincible Iron Man, issue 6. Number 9 is Rogue and Gambit, issue 3. And number 10 is Captain Marvel, issue 49. So credit to Kelly Thompson, who's I assume it's getting at least an issue 50, if not just continuing. But I imagine they're at least giving it an issue 50 to finish up if it isn't going any further.
Yeah.
So very good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not really a whole lot of surprises or exciting things. There was a new Silk miniseries started this week. I see that here in the in the list, but that's pretty much it.
So on League of Comic Geeks, you have to go down quite a few to get to the Miller stuff. So that just seems like maybe that's selling really well digitally through ComiXology.
Yeah, it could be the sort of people who read Mark Miller books just read Mark Miller books and a few other indies and don't necessarily, tick all the boxes on League of Comic Geeks the same way that other people might who are reading a bunch of stuff from everywhere. I don't know. Just some speculation, but that's the ComiXology top 10. There's
a new Cullen Bunn Leo Max book called Ghost Lore that looks pretty cool. So looking on that one, that was right in between the Mark Miller stuff. That's what drew my eye.
Okay, interesting. But we also do have a bit of news this week. Couple of, and it's comic specific. This is not movie news or whatever. Although I think there was some casting rumors for the Superman movie just like a couple hours ago. But honestly, nothing that exciting. So we'll save that until there's actually some proper news. But we have 2 big things coming up. Well, one of them's big. The other one's just kind of a special. But we have a big reveal for something that's going to be a major part of Tom King's Wonder Woman run. So debuting in Wonder Woman issue 800. So make sure you all pre-order if you definitely want that comic. Trinity, a new character that is Wonder Woman's daughter from the future. When I say from the future, I mean the image that they've put out of her as an adult. So this is her in the future. Right. I suspect there may be a kid version in the present day at some point. But so they made this big reveal about this week. Tom King's done the interview rounds specifically with IGN, I think. So, I don't know, thoughts, feelings? There's now a Wonder Woman daughter coming into the mix.
I mean, one of the images I saw was her and Damian and John, but it was Damian in the trench coat Batman suit from Batman 666, and then John looking like just a much older version of himself. And it was a shot from behind, so it looked like they were going into somewhere. So, curious that her name is Trinity.
I get it.
That's what that means, yeah. With or like, also like, does she actually have like a human dad, or is it more like Diana, doing what her mom did, right? The molding from clay type deal. So like she's a third iteration or something.
Is that even canon now, though?
I don't even know. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked that versus her being Zeus's daughter.
Yeah. I don't think that's canon. I mean, honestly, like I can never keep track of what version of the origin we're on, but I want to say it's not canon right now. Yeah, I mean, the name makes enough sense to me. I mean, Tom King doing interviews has been kind of saying that he liked the idea of Damien and John having a younger sister they can look after, and it kind of mirrors his kids because he has 3 kids, 2 of which are pretty much the same age, and then one who's like 5 years younger, and that's kind of, I mean, admittedly she'll be at least 13, 14 years younger than Damien, unless there's some timey-wimey nonsense to get into things, or she secretly had this kid like years ago and it just now is getting her out of Themyscira or something. I don't know, but I will say, like, I sort of like appreciate that there's probably a purpose to this, and I can see some interesting ideas for stories, and there is an interesting concept to having a child of each of the Trinity, and this one's literally called Trinity, but you have each of them have a kid, and they're kind of this new younger generation. I will say it kind of felt like for a while we were setting up Yara to be the Wonder Woman of that trio, and I feel like this is just kind of
undercutting,
sidelining her, especially since Yara's not really had anything in quite a bit of time now.
And considering that it seems like King and I'm drawing a blank on her name, the artist, are so good that created Yara. Catwoman, help me out here.
What are you talking about?
The artist that created Yara, right? When they first did the
Joel. I thought you meant Trinity. I'm really talking about it's Daniel Sampier.
No. No. So it seems that they're such close friends too. That seems like an odd thing, but whatever. This also just could be like a one-off type story too, because we know how King does this type of stuff.
I don't know. I feel like they're making the big announcement of saying she's debuting in Issue 800. At least makes me think she's going to be a prominent character in his run. So I think the thing for me is that because we've barely had a chance to really flesh out Yara and have her own stories in her own time as the Wonder Girl, I suppose, if you want to call her that, of the of her era, it does kind of feel like there is a concern that some maybe we're ballooning some of these like characters' families up a bit too much. And I don't mean literal. I mean, obviously she's literally her daughter, but I mean, in the larger sense, the Bat family. Includes so many Batgirls and Robins now and all that stuff. Superman obviously now has these twins that and the story's but great to get to that point in action. Connor Kent's a bit of a spare wheel that could just be left behind again, to be honest. But
I want to argue, but I can't, because John has really taken up all of that real estate. Like all the stuff that I missed with having Connor, now John's doing by getting to be like Superman's son and try to step out of the shadow. So it kind of makes me not miss John or not miss Connor.
Yeah, and I think you could be upset about that, but at least Connor Kent did have a long time where he was, he was in the Teen Titans, or he was in Young Justice. He had his time as Superboy. Yeah. He had like a long time where he was that in that slot. So at least you have that, and it's not like you're taking something away of a character who's actually still pretty recent. Whereas potentially here with Yara, like this could just be like that's her done now. She's just always going to be this niche character that never really get a chance to flourish or have the spotlight on her. So I don't know.
And it depends what they do with her group out of the Amazon too in Brazil, right?
If anything,
that was a whole part. Yeah, that was a whole part of it too that led to her, and it was this different side of the mythology of the Amazons. So, but yeah, I mean, it felt for a while DC was stagnating on characters, and now it almost feels like they've gone the opposite direction where there's almost too many.
Yeah. They're
and we don't have time.
They're introducing more, and they're not like giving enough time to the ones that are already around.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that. Because if you look at like the Bat characters, like, or even the Batgirl specifically, like each one had their time and they had their run, right? Some were longer than others to an extent, right? And it's kind of weird because Babs kind of got her time as Batgirl after the others, even though she was first canonically. But whatever. There was an era where Cass had her book for a number of years. Steph only got her book for 2 years, but it was very good and it was very memorable. But that was a good example of when the New 52 started, we all felt like her time got cut short. Like we could have went for another couple of years with her. Right. So,
well, and how many issues did that get up to? It was in the 30s, right?
No, 24.
24? It was only 2 years. Well,
yeah, it was almost exactly 2 years of single issues. Yeah.
Well, but so, yeah.
I guess I would assume that Yara now is just going to kind of feel like Cassie Wonder Girl, where she'll pop in for the odd cameo, but she's never really going to necessarily have that much now. At least, unless there's a reversion later on where we go back to her because maybe no one else wants to use the Trinity character.
Yeah, but it feels like each of the main, outside the Bat family, because I feel like they all kind of get used in stories. That each of them kind of have this middle character that's not like they're kind of a teenager, but they also could just be a young adult. Because over in Flash, you also have Wallace. He pops in from time to time, but there's now you have Wally's kids and you have Bart back, and all of these too. So it just seems like there's almost this other lost generation. Like there was the Young Justice lost generation a couple of years ago.
Mm.
So but yeah, we'll see. I just like to follow the stories now and see whatever's popping off. So like again, you were talking about Connor Kent earlier. If that book ends up being good, we can do stuff like that. These little side jaunts for the Connor fans like myself, and he doesn't get forgotten about.
Yeah, but like, I'm not going to read any more of that because the first issue felt kind of just
right.
skippable
But
to me.
I would not describe you in any sense of the word a Connor Kent
Well,
fan.
no. But the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think like his miniseries is ever going to feel important because they don't want that character to be important. It is just a scrap for the people who like him to, hey, you got a book, shut up.
Right.
It's never actually going to be like a big grand story that reinvents the character as his next big chapter,
Right.
And I think that's the concern as more and more kind of start to feel like they're left behind. And I have this problem so I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil games, and there's like an issue that we have now with that franchise where there's people like me who were there from the start and love the original era more than anything. And there's people who came in with Resident Evil 4 when it turned into more of an action series, and they love that era. And then it turned into this first-person horror thing with Resident Evil 7, and there's people who sort of came in that newer era. And it's basically impossible now to make a Resident Evil game that'll satisfy all the fans of it because all the fans have different ideas of what they think it should be. And I feel like there's a similar thing that happens with these characters, where when you add new generations of characters, some people are really attached to one Robin, or they're really attached to one Batgirl, or one Wonder Girl, or whatever, and they're annoyed when it's not their one that's getting the spotlight. And obviously there's some flexibility, and you have to have a bit of a reasonable expectation of like growth and things changing, but like as a concern, it's something that can pop up.
Yeah, but then I also like to look at the silver lining in something like you got stuff like Danger Street, right? That takes these characters, granted it's decades later, that were like featured in one-offs. Maybe there's a writer that's not a writer yet that can do something interesting down the line. That's why it's what's great about comic books. Nothing's ever really lost as long as someone remembers it, So just how to keep it in the memory.
It is worth mentioning, though, everything we're talking about here that's a potential concern is all just sort of more greater scope DC stuff. Yeah. Neither one of us at any point in this conversation has said we're worried about the storytelling that might happen because we're not. I'm sure.
Well, especially with King and Sampier together, like that's a team right there. So I'm kind of willing to follow them on whatever story.
Yeah, and
this is going to go.
Not everything King's ever done has been great. It may end up not being his best work, but he's definitely earned the benefit to give a try and see how it pans out.
Yeah, I mean, but if this was the current team on Wonder Woman introducing a daughter character, I don't think we'd be talking about it this much.
Yeah, we'd barely be paying attention.
Yeah, so.
I don't know. It would barely make the news probably if it wasn't like a new run with a new team and
So yeah, but we'll see. We're going to talk about it later. I'm just happy to have a Green Lantern book back, right? So there's other like more established characters that I'm happy to get into and read while we're doing new things in other sections. But that's just me.
Yeah. So yeah, that is the Trinity news. Wonder Woman's daughter coming in action. Wonder Woman 800, and then of course into Tom King's Wonder Woman run. They also announced a one shot this week, coming in. So it's Action Comics presents Doomsday Special Issue 1. And this is going to be a story where Supergirl and Martian Manhunter fight Doomsday. So, it's 48 pages, comes from Dan Waters and artist Eddie Barrows, who we mainly know, I think, from the Haining era of Detective Comics.
Eddie Barrows also did the with Venditti, the Freedom Fighters.
Okay, yeah. That sounds familiar.
So, very, very good action sequences. So I'm excited to see Martian Manhunter versus Doomsday in some form.
So this is coming in August. Didn't we already have August solicits?
I feel like we did, but maybe not. Maybe it was July.
No, I think we did, but sometimes they'll do like a little sneaky one at the end of the month that's in the next month's solicits, and I'm wondering if that's what they've done
Yeah.
here. But regardless, yeah. So 48-page book. I'm always down for another Supergirl story. I like the character quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, sure. I mean, Dan Waters and Eddie Barrows are strong enough creative names. They're not off-putting in any way. There's a nice front cover that's doing the rounds of Doomsday sitting on what's essentially a throne in a world that Doomsday would be a king. So, take that for what he's not wearing a crown or anything, though, admittedly.
No.
He's
sitting on the throne.
Just sitting on the throne. But it's a nice cover. So, no. Yeah, not much to really add. It just there's a bit of the description here. In the wake of Dark Crisis on Lazarus Planet, King Doomsday now sits on a throne of skulls across a river of blood, holding court over the demons that swarm the depths of hell, and he may have just found a way back to the land of the living. It's now up to Supergirl and Martian Manhunter to drive the beast back and see that he never again returns to our earthly plane, even if they must die to do it. Plus, the return of Bloodwind and the debut of the Doomhounds, and a clue to the next big Superman event. So it's going to tease another Superman story coming up. But
yeah,
cool.
Weird that Doomsday's sitting in hell, like, because considering he's so science-based, it's weird that's a direction. I'm not surprised at Dan Waters, right?
Yeah,
but
Yeah, and it is the very end of it. It's August 29, so I wonder if they're sneaking this in the September solicits.
And the next ones,
yeah. So that's cool. And that sounds like it might be a week 5 as well, so it's probably a good week for it as well. So, okay. Well, there you go. That's Action Comics presents Doomsday Special Issue 1, so on sale in August. So, that was the news this week. Do you know, I have to give DC some credit here. They've been very good this month of sprinkling out the news, a couple of things each week, so that we've had something to talk about. Because normally you get a couple things a week before solicits, and then it's 2 weeks of absolutely nothing. So I feel like they've done a good job this month of giving us a little thing, just a little thing here or there to...
Yeah, been pretty consistent.
Yeah, it's nice. That's all I'm saying. It's just a bit nice. So, very good. So, all right.
Throw an edit. I gotta go check my dog real quick. She's making some noise, so I gotta make sure everything's okay.
Okay.
So let me go check.
Anything exciting happened to you this week, Matt?
Besides almost having a heart attack watching hockey, no. Was I supposed to? Did something happen I forget about? Or no,
I was just asking.
Okay, I don't know if you were just digging. No, I did see Guardians 3 on Sunday. Ugly cried about 3 times, but other than that, enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you see it yet?
Nah.
Wow.
Why are you surprised?
Because Guardians, as far as Marvel goes, I was pretty sure you're pretty high on Guardians. So
I'm higher than the rest of Marvel, but I mean, I haven't seen a Marvel movie in the theaters since Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Oh wow! We have a puppy appearance because this is my life now.
The shambles is this. So we got rogue dogs interfere in the show.
Yeah, that's what happens. So, but no. Other than that, nothing. Just super busy, and struggling to get my books in on time. So, nothing like dropping the iPad on your face as you're reading before bed because your body's just like, nah, man, it's time for sleep.
I imagine you wake up a bit when that happens, though.
Oh, you do, and it doesn't feel great. So, but yeah.
No.
Anything happened for you?
Not really. I got really. I had to help move a couch this week, so I felt miserable doing that. I'm older.
Yeah.
Turned 34 today.
Yeah.
So
entering your mid-30s.
The aches and pains hit almost at midnight instantly.
like you're a gremlin of age.
I was like, oh no, my knee! What's wrong with my knee?
Yeah. I sneezed the other day and hurt my neck. So that was fun. Nobody tells you this when you're older. None of the adults in my life growing up were just like, yeah, yo, you're just gonna have aches and pains forever now.
Mm.
Cough too hard, you might throw your back out.
I mean, I've never felt the risk of that, but
Yeah.
no, no. I did have Taco Bell for birthday lunch though, so
Hey, buddy.
that's something.
Did you go with the burritos or the tacos?
I bet both.
Okay. All right.
One burrito and 2 tacos.
All right. Man, that's an appetizer for me, sir. Especially on my birthday. I'm telling him, give me one of everything.
Well, maybe that's why you almost throw your back out every time you sneeze.
That has nothing to do with my health. That has to do more with maybe not lifting appropriately at the gym. So, but yeah.
Nah, I don't know. I haven't played a lot of video games. It's been a video game couple of weeks. I don't know. For whatever reason, I've just been feeling that itch more than anything else. So I've not really been reading extra comics or even... I've watched a lot of movies, but they've all been for reviews and things like that.
Yeah.
So just how it's been going. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Banter part of the podcast has thus concluded. We can get into the comics. So Green Lantern issue 1, Jeremy Adams writing with Xermanico on the art. We have Hal Jordan returning to Earth, hitting up Carol Ferris.
This felt like Rebirth Part 2, and I mean that as a compliment. It was just Hal jumping back into being a hero on Earth, which is something that we have not seen in quite some time. So, very much a fan of that. However, I totally forgot that the United Planets had taken over the Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah, I forgot that as well.
So that being and now Hal essentially being an outlaw, like he was supposed to turn his ring in because they deemed Earth too chaotic to require their presence. Despite us having 4 Earth Lanterns, 6 if you count Simon and Jess, which I don't know if they are. But yeah.
Yeah, in what world would you not count them?
Well, because it didn't seem like they counted them there in the little blurb at the beginning of there was like a recap page kind of deal. It didn't seem like it mentioned it. I could have sworn it mentioned 4 Earth Lanterns.
They've reassigned the Earth Lanterns to other sectors. It doesn't say a number.
Gotcha.
Nah, so it's just all of them.
Then they got reassigned too, which makes it seem like the United Planet is up to some shady stuff, personally. But I will say that I love that Jeremy Adams didn't take time to get into that. It was all very much focused on Hal and his return to Coast City. So yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I think Jeremy Adams clearly's got a fondness for a very particular era, and we've seen that in his Wally West flashbook. And I think here, I've been saying for a long time, one of my favorite things about the Green Lanterns book with Simon and Jess was that it was, not always, but it was often set on Earth with their supporting cast, their families, and things like that. And I think Green Lantern, well, it's kind of funny how it's almost built enough like Green Lantern characters now that are all Green Lanterns who explore space that you can effectively have an ensemble even when they're out doing space stuff.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes miss the tether of actual supporting characters, and sometimes, honestly, it gets a bit dull sometimes when all of the characters are all lanterns. Like, see when it's all lanterns, whether it's the Earth Lanterns or Kilowog is there, or you've got Yellow Lanterns. I'm like, where's the regular people that factor into this? Because I miss that sometimes.
When Salak is the regular person because he's kind of dispatch of the Corps, and he kind of just stays there. So them being back on Earth and Hal mentioning his brothers or his brother was a nice touch, and him back with at Ferris to be a pilot. I think that's all very interesting, but it also didn't feel like it was retreading on a lot of stuff, because it felt like here's Hal coming to, like Earth life has passed him by, like Earth didn't stop, so things have changed, and now he kind of is almost like a man out of time again, where he's, in the story, he goes to work for Ferris Aircraft, and she's like, yeah, we don't really have pilots anymore because they're all drones. And I was like, there's nothing. So it was kind of reminding me of Top Gun as well. there, which I think.
Well, I mean, I think you're glossing over how it's told because it doesn't tell us that. It shouldn't say that any of that. We get a reveal after a flight sequence when he crashes the plane that he's not actually in the plane. It was just a drone. He was flying it remotely.
Right.
So it's kind of a reveal in the book. That's how it's told. And,
yeah.
I think the issue is pretty solid. It's mostly a status quo setting up issue where it's like, okay, he's back. It does the fun little introduction of Carol where she tries to avoid him and get away before, because she hears he's outside and she's trying to get away, but he catches up to her. And she's like, shit, I don't want to speak to you. Every time you show up, it's trouble. And she reveals she's got a boyfriend. She's with someone now. I could definitely see the potential here of them just retreading familiar beats, if not of Green Lantern itself, just in general, because I feel like this is a very sort of, typical done story beat. But it is nice to have Carol back again. It is nice to have some of this chemistry back. I will say Hal definitely did come off as an entitled dickhead at one point in this book. When he's showboating in the plane when he's flying it, and he ends up crashing it, and Carol quite rightly says, do you have any idea how much that jet cost because you were trying to show off? And he just kind of brushes it off. And I'm like, I don't know, you're kind of being a dick here, Hal.
Sir, you're a liability. We can't have you be doing this. That was still an aircraft that crashed,
Yeah, it is supposed to be taken that way, to be fair. I don't think it's trying to paint over it and pretend that he didn't do something wrong there. It's definitely showing you that he's kind of struggling because he's not been on Earth. He doesn't have any financial anything,
$50 to his name
because he's been in space for such a long time. He doesn't have anything, so he's come to Carol for a job, and she's reluctantly given him it. And we sort of see that. So it's mostly the status quo of okay, here's where his main supporting cast is now, that being Carol. Here's what his struggles are now. But we also see that he's back as Green Lantern and that people are excited about the fact that they have Green Lantern back in Coast City. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It does a split time thing here where it shows you sort of the... I didn't realize this right away, but it turns out he didn't actually have his powers when he first came back. We see him up front with the powers, and then it goes back and shows that he kind of absorbs the willpower energy from the villain who's using an old manhunter suit that they found somewhere. And this big fight, because basically there's a fight. Because I almost got a little confused because it skips back to the 3 months ago part of the story, and he hears on the radio when he's sitting at these brothers' cabin or whatever it is, and there's a fight. There's a villain doing stuff in the city, and he immediately grabs his car keys and starts driving. And I'm like, Hal, why aren't you flying? Yeah, why aren't you flying to the city? And then obviously it becomes clear, oh no, he doesn't have his powers right now. He this is how he reforms his ring or absorbs the energy to actually use it again or whatever it may be.
Because once that intro happened where it says he's kind of an outlaw, I was wondering, okay, but if he's an outlaw from the core, how does he have a ring? Because that would seem to be counterintuitive.
Yeah, but to be fair, Matt, wasn't his ring already kind of unique?
Yeah, right. So, because judging, if it's the same one, if I remember from Hal and Pals, he forged it from his own will. So, his ring really isn't, Owen issue. It was his own. So, but he doesn't have a battery or anything. So he does charge it off of the Manhunter energy. So.
Yeah, you should know this better than I do because you actually read that shit.
Right, but it's been a minute though.
Yeah, so Hal doesn't have an issued ring. He doesn't have. The Guardian. That's the text at the start explains that the Guardians aren't around anymore. So United Planets are actually in charge of the Green Lanterns right now, and they've sent all the Earth Lanterns elsewhere. They deem Sector 2814 to be too volatile, so they've just kind of have abandoned it. Which it might be leading to a bigger story down the line potentially, and whatever their motive is for that. So it's left Hal kind of on his own as the only Green Lantern on Earth, and that's kind of where we are. So it definitely feels like it's harkening back to a sort of, you say rebirth, but I'm not saying it feels like a Silver Age story, but it feels like it's taking it back to the basics of when it was a Silver Age and he was just a test pilot. And
before there was this whole Green Lantern Corps, we knew there was a Space Force because of Abin Sur, right? but this was more where he was not confined to Earth, but dealing with Earth problems, kind of hard traveling heroes era. But that's to me that's exciting because to see him, interact with the people of Coast City. Like the opening sequence is him, these people trapped in a mine, and then slowly as they're talking about how they're trapped, this green light washes over them to have like this really awesome reveal that Hal's getting them out.
Yeah.
So
and there's a little tease there. It looks like Sinestro's hanging about in the bar with a hood up. So we'll see where that goes.
Because when the last time we saw him was the Snyder Justice League stuff, right? With like the infrared lantern, or what was it, ultraviolet lantern?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the last time I remember seeing Sinestro.
It's been a long while. Yeah, I think it just feels refreshing because Green Lantern's been kind of stuck as the space book for so long, and while it makes sense why it has been, I do think the variety and having a more Earth-based Green Lantern story, at the very least alongside the typical space stuff, makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, there's this villain calling himself Steel Fury who's attacking the city in the 3 months ago time period. Hal shows up, tries to talk him down, especially since like the armor's dangerous because it's a manhunter.
Right, it's alien tech.
Yeah, see, it's alien tech that he's wearing. Yeah. But he ends up absorbing all the energy, and the last page is the full page spread of him with his Green Lantern outfit on for the first time since he's come back. Not the first time in the book because we're jumping around time-wise, but yeah. So it's just there's not much to the story of the first issue. It's more about just establishing where he is, what his status is, what the status with Carol is. It says next time we're going to meet Carol's fiance, so that's going to be something we're going to be dealing with. I think the story's solid enough. I like that it's not shying away from him being kind of this selfish prick. Not in an super unlikable way, but he does have faults. He's not. Yeah. So he does come across like he's a bit self-absorbed.
He's cocky. He's got that pilot energy,
But the big thing here, though, is Xermanico's art, which is...
It's so crisp, so clean. Like, so going from the superhero stuff where he's fighting Steel Fury to the, Carol standing in the office, like there's range in this and it all looks great.
And the sequential art and even just those simple moments where it's Carol biting her lip when she's like thinking, second guessing if she should run away or not before Hal sees her. They're just good little character beats that sort of make the characters feel alive and make this a more enjoyable issue as a result. Honestly, the action's fine, but the character beats are what make it kind of sing as a better issue.
Stuff like Hal calling her Queen of Xamaron, and everyone's like, "What did he just say? What did he just call you?" And her reaction on that too, Xermanico just nails. So all the banter stuff too looks great. Like there's definitely a flow between him and Adams.
Yeah, and you've got him sitting looking up at the stars at one point, and that's very pretty. You've got the actual action stuff with him in the suit. We talked about the miners who are trapped in the cave or whatever at the start, and the green light coming over them. All of that stuff looks great. Like it feels like an A-tier comic, mainly because of the art. I mean, the writing's fine, and Adams is a solid enough sort of B-tier writer, I would say. Yeah. But the art kind of elevates everything here to feeling kind of a bit more special. Yeah. So it's definitely left me excited to read more. It was an enjoyable read, and I was expecting an enjoyable read. Will it go above that, just like solid, fun, but never excelling as an amazing comic like The Flash, or will it rise above that sort of tier? Right. We'll find out in time. We'll see if he's learned some lessons or whatever. But
much like his Flash, Adams is like his joy that's coming through writing these characters is his giddiness makes me giddy too. It's like infectious.
I think the question I have is that with the Flash, like there's a natural momentum forward in that he's having a new kid. We've got the twins, well, not twins, but we've got the kids back, and we've got the whole Flash family, and his run is kind of tried to nudge all that forward a little bit. So while it's harkening back and nostalgic for a specific era of Flash comics, it was taking everything forward. I think what I'm curious about this Green Lantern run is that right now it's just kind of re-establishing an old status quo, more or less. Well, obviously the events of recent Green Lantern have happened, but it's kind of re-establishing this more old school Ferris Air Base, Coast City type of Green Lantern story. My question would be, once he's sort of set up his things, are we going to feel like he's advancing Hal Jordan as a character forward in some meaningful way? Or is it going to feel the entire time like, no, it's mostly just, back to this sort of era and back to, is it just a nostalgia hit, effectively, for an audience who are going to appreciate this? Or is it going to actually try and take him forward and, whatever that means?
What I'm thinking from being a little bit familiar with Adams from Flash, right, is seeing Sinestro pop up didn't make me groan, right, because I'm keeping an open mind. But like, I've had enough of the Sinestro and Hal Jordan type stuff. However,
no, I get it. I get it. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so, however, if they make it if Hal has to learn to be an actual outlaw, right, from the United Planets, because I'm sure once they realize that he's active on Earth, it's going to cause problems. Who better to learn from than like the original outlaw Green Lantern? So if they have that where they're actually they have that mentor kind of thing again, but it's not based off of Sinestro trying to show he's the better Green Lantern. It's actually like, no, you see, sometimes authority is bad. It
kind of just all depends, like, what Sinestro's characterization is. Like, is he going to be a villain? Is he an anti-hero? Right. Is he like an old friend where it's complicated, but ultimately he's kind of more of a good guy now? Like, it entirely depends on what direction they're going to take in.
Yeah.
And honestly, right now, I don't know which one I would like more, because they've done all of them, and I've liked different interpretations of Sinestro up until this point so much that I don't even know which one will feel the most fresh at this point. It's, in fact, the same with Carol in a way. Like I had the thought, when it's introducing the fiancé, I'm like, okay, the most generic thing they could do here is that the fiancé is there to eventually get, to move out the way, either because she decides to leave him or he gets killed or whatever it may be, so that they can have Carol and Hal back together again, right?
Right.
But honestly, at this point, I'm thinking, is that just too safe? Is that just too much of a safe, typical thing that we expect them to do?
I'm hoping they go the opposite, and like Hal and this guy end up becoming buddies, and then maybe that's when he dies, Hal feels responsible instead of him being a wedge between, Carol and the fiance. It becomes this, hey, this guy's not so bad. Oh my God, me being Green Lantern got him killed, type deal.
Well, that's if they kill him. I mean, I don't know if they...
No, yeah, I'm just saying this is. I'm hoping that we don't go down that more milk toasty. This guy kind of sucks. We're hoping for Hal and Carol to get together, because at this point, I'm kind of over Hal and Carol as a unit, because it's been going for so long, right? And it's always just them doing the dance around it, because her Star Sapphire, or she's the boss, and all that stuff. So
but at the same time, I also feel like they've ignored it so much and never given it a proper conclusion.
Right?
That there is still something to do there if they really. I guess ultimately what we're saying with this conversation is that this is a solid first issue, but there's no signs in it of what it's doing that's going to make it like special. There's no signs of what he's going to be saying about the character, or how he's going to take Hal, or Hal, Carol, and Sinestro as the three core characters forward. So it's like, I like this issue. I even like it quite a bit, but if it ultimately never starts to feel like it's saying something or doing something new with the character, it might start to become a bit of a problem, where I sort of look at it and go, oh, it's solid enough, but it's not like taking anything forward. And it's not to say that it has to do anything too extreme. I wouldn't say that the Flash book does anything extreme with its characters or concepts, but at the very least it keeps, it's sort of like, okay, we have a family now. Okay, how do we do that? So we have the kids on their own, we flesh them out a little bit. We have, okay, what's it like to be a father to these kids? What's it like for these kids to make friends who may also have powers? And just taking the natural steps forward. I just wonder, are we going to feel like we're doing the same with Hal here? Because obviously the difference between this and Flash is that inherently this has to kind of reset Hal first and reset the status quo. I suppose to an extent so did Flash, but Flash did it in a way where it was like, we have to untangle all the weird continuity bollocks that's gone into it. Whereas here it's more just, okay, Hal's been off doing space shit for literally like a decade at this point in real life. So now we have to like reset what his like Earthbound story is going to be.
Right, which is something that I wanted for a minute, is the superhero Green Lantern. Yeah, so But also, I just hope it gets to that level that Flash was at, where like, yeah, it might not be amazing, but on a week that it comes out, I get excited that I get to read Flash. And I hope that Green Lantern's that one too, where I'm just like, oh yeah, Green Lantern's out this week.
Well, I mean,
I'm excited to read it.
I'd hope for, like, I'll be happy with that, but it's weird to say you hope for, oh, it's not amazing, but I'm excited to read it. Like, I would hope it's both. Well, like, give me something that's exciting, but also solid as well.
Yeah, but like, just in the fact, like, I read so many books, right? And like to have one that I'm excited for means a lot more. It's like Action's up there, Flash was up there. There are certain books that I look forward to every month or every other week in Flash's case when it went double shipping.
I'm just saying it's weird to say you're hoping for a 7. Like a 7's Flash has been typically a solid 7, and I've really enjoyed reading it. But it's weird to go into a book and say I hope that's a 7.
Yeah, because after some of the recent Green Lantern stuff, it has not been a 7.
Oh, so, true. Yeah, it's a step up for Green Lantern in general.
So, yeah,
ever since probably for me Green Lanterns itself, like that Rebirth book, I love that one.
Yeah.
Admittedly, would Hal be the character I would pick to do my Earth Green Lantern story at this point? No, probably not. I would pick Jess first. I'd pick Kyle second. Hal might be third, but here we are. Hal's the one they've went with.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We do have a backup though as well, by Philip Kennedy Johnson, and it is a John Stewart story. Although it seems like it's going to be sprinkling in the greater Green Lantern Corps as well.
Yeah, and from different universes it seemed, right? Or is this just this is where I got confused. Granted, I read this super tired. The action that happens towards the back of the story, is that stuff that's going on in another universe, or is this a part of the universe that those characters are in? Like, does that make sense? Like, are these different versions of those characters?
I feel like you worded that in the most roundabout, like...
I did.
Just, is this our universe? That's all you had to ask. Is this our universe?
Right. Because I feel like the John stuff is our universe, right?
Yeah, so so just to explain it, the first half of this backup is John Stewart with his mother. She's happy to see him, and he's like, hey, I'm sticking around for a while. I need a break from all that Green Lantern stuff. I need to, touch grass, as the kids say, and be around and help you. And she's got tears in her eyes. It's all very sweet. Solid stuff. And then it says, another universe, another time. So to answer your question, in black and white, although technically it's actually different shades of green, it says another universe, another time.
Right.
So yes, different universe.
Right. Because I'm like, again, super tired reading this, and I started seeing the name Gardner, but that did not feel like Guy Gardner, right? And they're throwing Rayner around too, and I'm like, what are we doing?
Well, Rayner's not in this story. They mention Rayner, but he's not here. You don't see him.
Right. So that's where I'm like, are we talking about Kyle Rayner? Is this like, are these descendants because it's at another time, another universe? Was that just being poetic? That this is what led to John coming back to Earth and needing to touch grass?
Honestly, I think you're way overthinking this. They're just setting up something that John's going to get involved in. That's it.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect.
Right?
I like that the story was short. I'll say that much.
Right? It just establishes that Guy and this young Green Lantern are in some kind of war, and then it seems like the young Green Lantern turns out to be a villain or is puppeteered by the actual villain. Maybe puppeteered is what I'm expecting here, but yeah, it's what's her name here? The Revenant Queen is controlling different Green Lanterns, and they're all purple now because she's controlling them. So it's called Rise of the Revenant Queen Part 1. Yeah. So
very, very cool, scary looking creatures. I'll say that much with the Revenant stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about Green Lantern is that you have so many Green Lantern characters now that it is easy to do a backup if you want to do a good backup. And obviously, Philip Kennedy Johnson's a great writer, so it seems like a good choice to do something. There'll always be part of me that just kind of wishes it was a regular 20-page comic that was structured that way, because I don't like that backups are only 8 or 10 pages, but that's whatever.
Yeah, I get you.
And ours pretty solid as well. And the backup, it's the artist here is Mantos, who I'm not super familiar with, but it wasn't like, I think after Xermanico I was expecting to hit the backup and go and honestly, not as much of a drop off as I don't like it as much as Xermanico art, but it pulls its weight. You know?
Yeah, the art looked great. That was the part of the story that stuck out the most to me. And I say that as a Philip Kennedy Johnson fan.
Yeah.
So
honestly, yeah, the only critique I had is when the young Green Lantern started acting like sort of villainous. I got a little confused as to whether he was just a villain now, or if he was being puppeteered by this Revenant Queen, who seems to be controlling other Green Lanterns. So I think that's what's happening. But I mean, I'm sure it'll be elaborated more on. In future parts.
Yeah, for sure.
So, no. So pretty solid issue 1 of Green Lantern, both the main and the backup. Like I say, I'm just curious to see if there'll be something kind of new added in that feels like we're taking Hal forward as a character. And maybe him just accepting that Carol's going to marry someone else and being a human, like an adult about it, is maybe what we can do.
And I would love for Cowgirl to show back up, because, you know, we got her early in the Johns run. And then we never saw her again.
Give it up. Johns didn't even remember she existed once he got a few arcs in.
I know. I think someone even asked if he had plans for her. He goes, who? And I was just like, oh. But yeah, just maybe. Just pull from that and I'll be happy.
I doubt it. It's funny, you mentioned it made you think of Top Gun. It wouldn't surprise me if part of the pitch for this book was, hey, Top Gun Maverick made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Let me do some Top Gun Maverick style stories with Hal Jordan.
Yep.
So, all right, what are you rating Green Lantern issue 1?
I'm going to give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I think I am too. It felt very fresh. Like I say, you know, there's a couple of question marks as to like, okay, what is this book really going to be once it gets going? But at least right now, it was refreshing just to have a more grounded, back to basics Green Lantern story to start off with. So we'll see what they're actually doing going forward next issue. But cool. All right, Superman Lost issue 3. Christopher Priest writing, Carlo Pagulayan on the art. So once again, we have a little bit in present day with Lois getting frustrated and finding Clark's white suit and just a little like tech device that's been damaged, and obviously we see by the end of the story like how it ended up damaged. But it's basically, so last issue Clark left the planet with this jetpack thing to fly through space and a suit and a little breather mask so that he could make his way home. But he's talking to the AI that's in this like tech device, and it's basically like, yeah, you know, another 94,000 years and you might get home. Something like that. So basically it's just him again sort of encountering some different things on his travels. Space dolphins being the main thing, which leads to another planet where the dolphins want his help seemingly, because there's this alien race that's sort of fighting against them, and it's like this like, you know, tiny nano, it's like a nano race that sort of forms a big sand kind of Superman, which they've taken from his mind. It's not just like he finds something related to him. And
I got worried looking at the cover. I'm like, are we getting to some timey-wimey stuff where, you know, he had come back and, you know, he hasn't been to this planet yet kind of stuff, yet they already know who he is. And I'm glad that's not what it was.
I was glad a couple pages after they revealed that big sand construct of Superman that it was, oh no, they're just pulling this from his head, because it's not that they can see him because he's not got a cape on, and the sand construct clearly is the regular outfit that they're modeling it after. So I'm glad there was a. So it's funny, the space dolphin showed up, and then like Superman starts talking about how, oh yeah, Lobo told me about these like years ago, and I was like, oh, this is actually something from continuity. Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I saw the space dolphins. I was like, oh man, is Lobo gonna pop up? Is Lobo our savior here that's gonna help Superman get back? And I did like that by the end. The question is, you know, because Superman's like, oh, I'll just follow them home. Like the space dolphins have been to Earth before, and I believe it's the AI that tells him, is like, how do you know these are the same ones?
Yeah, he basically rides them like in Finding Nemo when they're going with the turtles. That's effectively what he's doing to sort of speed up his journey.
Yeah.
And
that's why they end up going to that planet, right? Because they feed on that nano race, so they see these dolphins as predators, and they think that Superman's with them. So that they form the big, you know, try to steer him off, but he's able to do the Superman thing and reason with them. So. My main thing with this book still is that Priest style of, I think he read a quantum physics book, and now he's trying to, you know, drop terms and and philosophies down in here, and it sometimes gets a little bit clunky to read. But when Superman's doing like the heroic stuff, I think the book flows really, really well. And what I mean by heroic stuff, I mean when he's acting like Superman, like talking to these this nano race, and reasoning with them, and letting cooler heads prevail, or arguing with the AI and kind of having these philosophical discussions there. I think it works. But once we start getting into the sciencey things of it, for me becomes kind of a slog to read.
Yeah, I mean, I think the book looks great. I think Pagulayan's art is really solid. I think the sand construct looks great. I think Lois looks great in the present day stuff at the start.
Yeah, the beginning stuff is really strong. I like the dark lines on her too.
Yeah,
with playing with the shadows,
and you've got all of that stuff with him sort of like swimming with the dolphins effectively in space, which is very it sticks out. It is a really strong image. Now the line work is consistently really good in it. I think the story for me, I'm enjoying those present day bits because they feel like they add a lot of weight to like the impact of him being gone so long. And it's like, okay, he's been gone 20 years. And we see in this story here that he's worried he might never make it back. And the fact that he's made it back to Earth in a timey-wimey way, where for them it's only been like a week or whatever, is probably like a blessing, because he's probably out there thinking, oh, when I get back, Lois might be in her 80s or something like that. Like, I might like have lost my life with everyone I know, kind of thing. And obviously that turns out not to be the case for everyone else. They're surprised when he's like, I've been gone 20 years by his perspective. But I think the actual adventure stuff in the bulk of the story so far is feeling a little bit like, I don't know, like maybe it'll all come together at the end and thematically I'll see the through line of it all. But right now it's like last issue it was that planet with the
Victor, he called it Kansas.
Yeah, Victor, and the Kansas stuff. And in this issue you get the dolphins and the sand construct nano race and whatever. Yeah. It is kind of feeling like different random concepts, and I'm like, is this just going to be like 9 issues of that and then the conclusion? That's kind of the way. Like, it's enjoyable enough, but it doesn't quite have the weight to it that the present day stuff is like setting up to be. Like, when you have that quiet moment at the start where Lois is looking at this white suit and like almost breaking down in tears because like what happened to him for those 20 years. When I go to read the rest of the story, in my head I feel like, oh, the way this has been set up, it feels like he's just back from Vietnam and we're going to see the horrors that he's went through. Yeah. But then it's like just typical space shit. Yeah.
stopping by and helping people.
Well,
and,
I say typical comic book fantasy space stuff is maybe a better way of putting it. But I feel like this is the sort of thing we see Superman do in space whenever he goes into space, rather than feeling like it's an actual gauntlet to like get back to Earth kind of thing.
I mean, outside of that, the time aspect, right? Because it didn't take him like 8 months. It was 8 months from when he left that Kansas to where he finds the space dolphins.
Yeah, he's literally just flying through space for 8 months, and
so like there's a time element there too, where I could feel like Priest will lean on that is the reason why Superman has this PTSD and stuff, just because him experience time in this way, I'm sure is enough to break anyone's brain. So. But yeah, so far the trials haven't been like, I would say, big enough.
I think that's my thing is that I'm way more interested in him with PTSD now than I am with the actual journey that he went on.
That's such a dark sentence.
I know. But honestly, it's more interesting though, because like Superman dealing with an actual like mental thing like that does sound quite interesting.
I like him spacing out in the way that he's done it would make sense post-war world. Right? Because of the stuff that he saw there and the stuff that he had to do.
It would make more sense, certainly.
Yeah. And this so far, it's like, all right, you met a planet that reminded you of home, and then you hung out with some space dolphins to talk to talking sand. Cool. What's next, my guy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the time of it is the big thing that would have broken him down, because it's 20 years. 20 years is a long-ass time to not be home. But it is, like... The opening segments, both this issue and last issue, and the entire first issue building up to him being lost, felt like it was setting up this like horrific experience. And I'm like, he's swimming with space dolphins. Like, I don't know. It's just so far the weight's not quite there in the way that I feel like the tone of that first issue did a great job of setting up everything up. And I think these little snippets of the present day stuff are really setting up something in my head that the actual adventure's not quite delivering. Even though it's still fun enough, it's still solid enough.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still enjoying it for what it is. But it's
I'm not contemplating not reading it. Like, I'm gonna read it every month still.
Yeah, but it's not living up to what the feeling that I'm getting from the other part of the book is. And the other part of the book's such a small part relatively now. Like, issue 1 was all mostly the present day stuff and the build up to him leaving, but these issue 2 and 3 have been like, here's a couple of pages set up, and then okay, it's all the zany adventure he went on. You know, so it's maybe a bit too zany right now.
Yeah, almost Superman coming back as a hippie would be more right now, because he's really getting in touch with the universe.
Do you know the funny thing about it as well is that I think you could maybe do a little bit of a comparison here with Supergirl, The Moon of Tomorrow.
I've been restraining myself not to,
because I feel like that did a better job of making it feel like the journey she's on this big epic.
Oh my god, she went through a gauntlet in those books, in those issues. You know, especially emotionally, like when we got to the ones where she had found the mass graves. You know, like King and Evely really drew that out without, like, I don't want to say with a minimalist, but like we didn't really see any of the atrocities. We just saw Kara's reaction to it. And here so far through these two, the last two, it's Superman getting in touch with the universe.
It's not even that. It's the way it was told. It's the narration from the girl character and like talking about it in the past tense, like it was this journey they went on. Like everything about it just builds this kind of feeling, and that feeling. Like, I'm not saying this has to feel the same as that. I'm just saying that achieves something closer to what I think parts of this book want me to feel than the rest of it actually does make me feel. So the end of the issue is the Dolphins run off without Superman, and they take his jetpack thing with them. And he's left with literally just the little AI device in his hand, and he crushes it out of anger. And then he's just like floating in space like the Star Child that they had 2001, being like, okay, I guess I'm dead now. So that's your cliffhanger. We'll see how he's saved at the start of the next issue, I presume.
Well, that suit, is also absorbing solar radiation, the white suit. And it's kind of acting like a life support, so I'm sure... Who knows? He might be floating there in stasis for 2 years the next time we pick up.
But it was absorbing it from the jetpack, because the jetpack was kind of like recycling like a small amount of solar energy. It said that.
That's right. And
he still has to breathe in space though, and he had a breather on, and that breather's not there. So
like,
something has to like come along and save him.
Right. Another ship full of aliens that drop him off on a planet.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, is that I'm worried it's going to feel formulaic after a few more issues where like, okay, this issue he runs into this other alien race, and you know, sort of I don't know. So there are some cracks beginning to form where I can see things that I won't like as much about it, but that said though, the issue as a whole is still pretty solidly put together. The art's very good. I think the big moment with the nano species are really well done. Like, you know, there's still a lot to like here as far as the actual like the artistry that goes into it. So, you know, not a bad comic by any means, but definitely like it's aiming for something, and I just feel like it's just slightly missing it here now, 3 issues in. Which is a shame, but not bad. So we giving Superman Lost? I'm
gonna give this a 7.
Yeah, I think a 7 out of 10 is fair. I'll agree with that. All right, so next up we got Spirit World issue 1, Alyssa Wong writing with Haining on the art. So this is the first of this new line of minis that we're getting as part of Asian Heritage Month. Is that what it's called?
I just know that the kids at my school call it AAPI month. So you know, Asian American Pacific Islander, I believe, is the
okay, that's what the rest of it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we obviously all these stories were teased in the various Lazarus Planet books that were coming out a few months ago. Which actually, you know, I think if I have a sort of objective critique, I do think it's a bit unfortunate that what happened in the tease for this, that had Batgirl, Cassandra Cain specifically.
It was essentially issue 1, right?
Yeah, that's my problem, is that what happened in that was actually so important to this that, you know, this is an issue 1, and there's an editor's note saying, hey, back in this one shot, this thing happened. I'm like, no, If you're going to do like a little teaser and like an anthology book to set this up, it should just be like a taste of the character, but don't do any important plot beats yet. So I do think that's a problem. I think that is actively a bad choice for an issue 1.
Yep, I agree. I agree. However, that said, I really enjoyed this issue 1, right? Because there's a lot going on, but in a good way. A lot of fun mythological stuff, and how it's I'm trying to put this as respectively as possible. The way that other cultures see death and the afterlife versus the way that we've gotten it in so much media. I'm glad that in like comics here, we can see this different version, right? Of what the spirit world is, and that, who's the writer on this one again? I don't want to get her name wrong.
Alyssa Wong.
Alyssa Wong. What Wong does here, through dialogue and stuff is, explain this spirit world and the offerings, and I didn't ever feel like this was just like exposition. I felt like it was part of the story. So, yeah.
I'm a bit more mixed on it, but I had that one objective complaint. I wanted to get that out of the way first because I think that's just a valid complaint from a writing standpoint. But I think anything else I have a problem with here is really just a taste thing. I don't think there's I think it's a pretty solid, well put together issue. I think it sets up some of its rules. I think there's a really good bit in the issue where we're in the spirit world and there's two women just talking about stuff, and they're sort of bitching about someone else, and they talk about how she's just mad because no one's burned anything in her honor recently, right? And that's like one of the rules of the spirit world, is that when someone in the real world burns something as a tribute, you get something from it. You get the thing in the afterlife.
It appears in the spirit world, and that's how they get things.
But the rest of that scene, though, when they smell Cassandra Cain, these two women turn into like spirit monsters because they want to feed on the living person who's in the spirit world. So there's bits like that are fun, and maybe the reason why I like that the most is where it kind of turns into slightly horror, and I tend to like stuff like this when it is more horror focused and mysterious. The actual sort of more fantastical elements of it, and is it Xanthe is the name of the main character?
Is their name?
Like they and Constantine, who by the way, like I think the art's pretty solid, but I will say I didn't realize that was Constantine the first couple of panels until they said Constantine.
And you said about story stuff is taste. I think the art as well, because it's very manga-esque, and I'm not a big fan of manga style art. Like if you are great, like there's nothing technically wrong with it. It's just a taste thing. And I had a double take if that was Constantine. Had they not said it was Constantine, if they just called him John, I'd be like, oh, this is a new character.
It's more obvious as it goes on and you see him in different situations. But that first page when he's just sitting at the table and there's like a cat on his head, it's like it's not that easy to tell.
Yeah.
But it's a sort of thing where I kind of obviously knew this going in because dealing with the spirit world and stuff, I knew it might not be quite for me because it's a bit too fantasy based. Like spiritual stuff isn't necessarily my thing. Like I say, when mystical stuff is more mysterious and they treat it as a horror, where it's like, oh, the fear of the unknown, and it's like soul crushingly dreadful.
To
like
it.
that I can get into that because you treat it as this like thing that we just can't understand. That's where kind of the Lovecraftian or whatever kind of cosmic horror comes into it. Like I'm not saying this can't work for me, but I feel like it's an uphill battle. Like very few things with this type of.
I'm so glad that we've done shows for as long as we have, and I can I was reading this, I was like, Pete's gonna think this is too fantastical. Yeah. So
and and I love Cassandra Cain obviously, so I think that she's a supporting character in this, but like I just I got through it, I read it, and I went, you know what, this was a perfectly fine comic, but I don't think it's for me, and that's okay. Like not everything has to be for me.
I'm invested in it enough. I can probably get past the art throughout. But just, I need a little bit more from Xanthe as a character because I'm kind of confused on where they're actually from because, what was her name? Popo, the grandmother character, talking about how she picks up strays.
Well, there's some important details here you gloss it over that we should probably explain. So this grandmother character, Popo, is in the spirit world, and she looked after Xanthe when Xanthe ended up in the spirit world. Now, Xanthe, of course, is back in the real world, because Lazarus Planet opened up things and whatnot.
Right.
But so this grandmother character ends up with Cassandra Cain and is looking after her, gives her some magic tea that'll basically hide her living scent,
And the other character that's with Popo and which is still a funny name to say, and Cassandra, what's his name?
Oh, you're asking now.
Is it Benton? I feel like it's Benton or something along those.
Bowen.
Bowen.
There you go.
Bowen. It feels like these are living people that have gotten stuck now in the spirit world, and that's with Xanthi. I'm not sure because reading the Lazarus Planet stuff, I thought they had, this was just like their thing. They dealt with the creatures crossing over,
Yeah, the end of the issue, like the big cliffhanger is that because the plot of the issue is that Xanthi and Constantine are trying to find a way to open the portal to the spirit world to get Cassandra back, right?
Right.
And that's why her going there as in the setup like mini story.
Right.
As a big plot point, feels weird. It felt really weird here when it's like, hey, Cassandra's in the spirit world. This happened, and like asterisks. Check out the Lazarus. Like I don't know. That feels like too big of a detail to not have in your issue one. But so that's what the plot is, and they're sort of working on doing that and looking for magicians to help and whatever. And
Constantine goes to call in a favor to a necromancer.
Yeah, and they end up having a fight with the spirits, and there's a bit of lore dropped here about what these spirits are. These I can't remember the name. They
call them a collective, which seems like it's just like a melding of different kinds of spirit world creatures on the outside.
Oh yeah, but earlier on they were talking about how the spirits were showing up as
Zhangxi
or something like that.
Zhangxi, yeah. I almost said Zhanxi 3 times, which is the the planet that Jon Stewart's famous for murdering.
So, yeah, but that's what the plot all is. But whilst they're doing this, and after they've had their fight and whatnot, the cliffhanger at the end is that a woman shows up and talks to Xanthi, and Xanthi's like, "Mom?" ? And that's so clearly I think issue 2, I presume, because it's going to be this conversation between Xanthi and their mother, will probably enlighten a lot of what the backstory is and how they ended up going to spirit world, how they became disconnected with their mother, and so on. Because this issue doesn't really solidify a lot of it. It just kind of hints at a couple things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I really like that scene too when Xanthi and Constantine go to that necromancer and they get in there, and it's like this. It looks like a hunting parlor with all of these taxidermied animals, and then this 2-headed goat, because they realize like, oh, these are creatures that are from the other side as well. And John has a comment that this necromancer is like, yeah, is that just fine conjuring life? He wants to create it from scratch, which I think that'll pop up as well. But then one of that double goat head starts like screaming, and they get around and there's a collective there. And I thought that scene was very well paced and handled.
Yeah.
And it was a bit creepy. So I really like those aspects of it as well. In addition to the more mythological side of things. So I'm going to stick around for at least the next issue. Plus, any character that wields a gigantic sword like that's cool by me.
I think one of the other things is like a pacing thing for me. And not that there's bad pacing in this issue, but when I talk about how it can appeal to me, some of this, because, them going to this mansion where the necromancer is, and let the animals on the wall start coming to life and attacking them. And it is a very horror-themed scene. But I wasn't that into it because it all happened so quickly that I didn't think there were I think for me to like that, I need some creepy scenes of them going through the building and starting to notice little signs. It needs to be a bit more grounded in how it builds up to things. Whereas this is a more fantasy-based book in the sense that it just keeps like hitting. It keeps going to 10 immediately. And I think one of the interesting things is that this sort of like horror fantasy stuff that I do kind of like tends to be TV or low-budget movies. And I think the reason is that because you can't just do what you want because you have to have a budget, it forces them to be more grounded, and I tend to prefer that, I think, between the two. But
I mean, no, that makes sense.
It's mostly a taste thing, though. Like I say, like this book is perfectly fine. I do have that one critique about a major plot point not being an issue one, but other than that, it's perfectly solid.
Yeah, I mostly enjoyed this. So just again, the art is my taste thing. But other than that, I'm glad this book can exist, and I'm glad that Cassandra Cain's involved too, because it's nice to have because I'm not a Constantine fan, so to have a familiar character pop up amongst these new ones, it's always a nice touch.
And I'm glad they are trying books like this for sure, and I'm looking forward to the other ones and seeing, there's 4. I assume I'm going to like at least one of them, if not a couple. So, what are you rating Spirit World issue 1?
I mean, it was a 7.5.
Yeah. I'll still go with a 7, even though I don't really think it's for me. I can't really discount it too much, but I just know I don't really feel that impassioned to read more of it. So, but that's Spirit World issue 1. Stargirl and the Lost Children issue 6. Geoff Johns writing, Todd Nauck on the art. So, yeah, this is the ending. Do you know what? They do something really obvious here that we really should have seen coming, but for some reason I never considered it, which
is
just the simple idea that Stargirl like opens this by saying, "Oh, when I was on the JSA," and it shows you like them in the ship from that early Geoff Johns, JSA story, and it's like, "Our man's my friend, and I'm going to help him because something's not right with him." I never expected them to pull on those strings of like, "Hey, she was on a team with him," and maybe it's just because I didn't realize that this Stargirl had that in her backstory.
Yeah. And I kind of forgot because again, Stargirl's been gone for so long.
Well, that's the thing. Like, obviously, Rebirth like brought back a lot of things in anyway. So I guess all that got restored. But I guess I just never considered that. Oh yeah, this is going to be someone that she worked with before. And instead of being like, "Who are you? Why are you being a villain?" She's like, "Okay, something's wrong with you. I have to help you.
I want to help." Yeah.
And sure enough, there's something in his brain that's making him do shit.
Yeah. So. And I literally in his brain, which I did love that aspect.
Literally, literally there's like a chip in his brain that's making him do stuff.
Because he's a futuristic android that somehow also has a mechanical brain. Which again, comics, I love it. This is why I read this silly stuff.
Yeah. It turns out to be Corky from the future, the Time Master.
From a potential future, because now we're doing the timey-wimey stuff. And
at the end, Corky is like upset because now he thinks everyone hates him, and he's like, "Well, I really become that." And the other Time Master's like, "Nah, that was a potential future. We've already dealt with him now."
We've already dealt with him, but this isn't why you're not allowed to have friends. And I thought, man, this might be the darkest John statement that I've read in quite some time.
There's a lot of fighting early on. I don't really have much to say about that per se, but I did think the Stargirl caring about our man as a friend actually did kind of it surprised me and hit me a little bit in a way I wasn't quite anticipating.
Because that's what it seems like this last issue is about. Also, is this friends and family and legacy and what that means, right? So like Stargirl as well as a legacy, just like that Our Man is, and so she feels a kinship with him with that, not just because they're on the JSA together, is that what they represent and that she wants to help out because it's her friend, but also what that means. At least that's how I read it, what that means throughout. Because no one would want to leave her behind.
Yeah, it turns out Corky's there to take Wing and put him back in the timeline because he's supposed to die saving the universe.
Right. So young Corky, kid version of Corky.
Yeah, young Corky, yeah.
That was his mission.
What she does, and Wing sort of accepts this and agrees to do it, even though no one else wants to let him. But he does it. He saves the universe. But as he's jumping into the timeline again, Stargirl uses the staff and like sort of basically holds on. Everyone holds on to her, and they all get dragged back into the real timeline again, which is how everyone gets home. So. Courtney shows up at home with 30 missing teenagers.
It kind of reminded me in Bill and Ted when they show up in the time machine in the back and they all start talking to Missy.
Yeah. There's a little tease for the Jay Garrick story where you just hear you hear Judy call him dad.
Which I found curious in that Johns wrote into this that because of paradoxical stuff, because of the future Corky, this is how I took it too. The future Corky taking them out of time the way that he did, they couldn't go back to their time because it had already moved or solidified. Yeah. So because of paradoxical things, they have to remain in Courtney's time.
Yeah, so I'm assuming this Jay won't remember having a daughter, and he's going to have to get to know her in the new miniseries, which is fine. Right. Like that sounds like a fun story to do.
Yeah. For sure. But I also like that they point out characters that have families like Ladybug, right? Like they're gone and they're these kids at a time. So I thought that was all very, very interesting for Johns to point out.
Courtney's also formed a team with these characters called the Young Justice Society, which is a cool name, I have to. That's not bad.
Well, and it's fusing that legacy name of Young Justice with Justice Society, so that's good. But yeah, the Mother Goose stuff. Or Mother Goose, whatever her name was, the bird lady. I thought that was all pretty cool when she gets that face mask cracked and she's got a full-on beak underneath. You know, it was all very, very creepy. But Nauck's art in this one, I like the layouts a lot. Like, there's a lot of cool sequential stuff. Like, there's that double page spread with Courtney, and she's doing like a flip, and she's going over like the whole battle scene.
It's actually like 2 or 3 2-page layouts that are all the same 4 vertical panels.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last one I think is the one where she's doing the flip through the panels. Yeah.
I think that all looked really, really nice because you know, and all the characters really pop. Like none of them are like lack of detail.
They do. I will criticize it a bit because I feel like 3 or 4 of the issues of this book have been like all the same characters in these big fight scenes where there's just a mass of bodies.
True.
So I will say it's a little hard to like, I don't know, sparse any of it out and like see meaningful parts in some of it, but it works well enough. It does say at the end, we'll see Stargirl and the Young Justice Society in JSA issue 6, which I have to point out that if JSA hadn't kept being delayed, that would have probably been coming out quite soon. But I think we've only had 3 issues of that so far. Yeah. So it'll be a little bit then because we're still waiting on issue 4. But yeah, JSA is coming. So very cool. Sure. So, you know, it does feel like ultimately this is going to tie in to that main GSA story a little bit down the line. And it would have been timed really well if the other one hadn't been pushed back. But hey-oh, it is what it is. But I do appreciate like Stargirl caring about our man. For some reason, I never considered that happening, and it actually was like it was the heart that made this last issue work, I think. Beyond just the fun setup of, okay, we've got all these characters now, Courtney's going to work with them, we'll see what they do with that. So and them knocking his brain out and taking the chip out, I thought was very funny.
So, you know, but yeah, no, very, very fun read. Nice fitting ending. Still wasn't expecting quirky, timey-wimey stuff. So it was the line that Our Man had about the raccoon always having troubles, always having trouble. And I was like, that's a weird statement. Is this, has Our Man been fighting the Time Masters? And so wasn't expecting it to be quirky.
I do like when the old Carcass shows up through the portal and he's got the raccoon, or the beaver, whatever it is.
It's a raccoon.
Like, I like how even the raccoon looks like kind of like he's been through a war. He looks like he's been in Mad Max or something, where they both look like they've had a rough time. That gave me a chuckle.
And also the darkness of the Time Masters too, painted there at the end about how we're not allowed to have friends and family because we're on a very important mission.
Oh yeah, I mean the last panel of the book is Corky just looking depressed as hell because like everyone hates him and he's terrified that he can never be anything else.
Right.
So,
but yeah, it's curious to see how that plays off in with the Young Justice stuff because he's also popping up in that book, right? Like, well, not him, definitely the Time Masters. So, we'll see.
Yep. All right. What you rating Stargirl and the Lost Children issue 6?
I'm gonna give this an 8. I had a good time with it.
I'll probably just go a 7 again. I think. Some of the big group fighting scenes just feel like we've seen about 5 of these already with all the same characters.
True.
So, but I did like the heartfelt parts of it, and I like John's playing with all the continuity stuff, typically. So, good stuff. All right, Danger Street issue 6. Tom King writing, Jorge Fornés on the art, and as always with this, it's all these ongoing threads running alongside, and sort of taking us to the next part. So, because of the fight that Starman was in. The kids now have Starman. The Dingbats have Starman tied up. Not that once he wakes up, of course, towards the end of the book, it's not like the restraints are going to do much. But
that cracked me up so much. He just kind of stands up and the ropes fall, and I was like, "Oh yeah, they're the Dingbats. Of course, they're not good at tying guys up."
Well, I also assumed they had like extra strength.
Yeah, but to me, it's funnier that they thought they had him, but it was only because he was, knocked out.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing in this is that out of nowhere at the end of this, at least I think it's out of nowhere. I don't think this was like hinted at before, unless I'm forgetting it from a previous issue. But Lady Cop has like a Dr. Fate helmet on her desk, and she's like talking to it, but then she looks at it closely, and she mentions it's like a Halloween Dr. Fate thing, and she looks at it closely, and it's got the Green Team like logo in the corner, and I'm like, okay, so we've had this like device where the Dr. Fate helmet's the one who's narrating this story. And now the first time a Dr. Fate helmet outside of the one that
the narration panels.
No, because Warlord and that had one, right? They had Doctor Fate's helmet because they used that for thingy, right?
Right.
But if this is the one that they had, like, why does it have Green Team stamped on the corner?
It's a great question.
Because I took the Green Team stamp to mean, oh, this is just a Doctor Fate
fake
mask they sell in a store,
right?
kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. But if
that's a great. I didn't even consider that. I just was like, oh, they've made a copy of this.
Yeah.
Like maybe they switched it out or something. Like there's something shady going on in the town.
Oh, do you think that's why it didn't work correctly and it brought in Atlas instead?
Maybe I'm not too sure, but it seems like it was charged with some kind of energy, right? Because that's why Metamorpho was there.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting little moment to end on. It just got me thinking about like how the Fate helmet's sort of fitting into things. Yeah. So, Manhunter's coming after the third of the 4 Green Team members. Now we know that the main one, the Commodore dude, he's made a deal with
Codename Assassin.
Codename Assassin, thank you. You knew I wasn't going to remember that.
I got you these because I also did some research after I read this one to keep the Green Team straight. Oh, very good. So, yeah. So this one is waiting and tries to run away. He tries to shoot Manhunter for a start, but he hesitates and he ends up running out the window in a great panel where he's sort of jumping in front of the sound effect for the glass smashing that he's just jumped through, and he lands in a pool. It's very Lethal Weapon 2. You know that scene in Lethal Weapon 2 where they throw Leo out and they all jump out and they land in the pool? It reminded me a lot of that. Yeah. Well, because I was like, oh man, he just jumped out. How is he? And then when Manhunter looks down, he's in the pool giving him the finger. Yeah. Like, that was such a good scene.
It's a great scene, yeah.
Yeah. So
Lady Cop tries to talk to Warlord and he says, piss off, I'm not telling you anything.
That was the thing too with Warlord being a pilot and going missing and he's on AWOL. So like we all know that he's the Warlord, but to her it's like, oh, he's just this crazy guy that is, he's got ties to the death of this kid.
Yeah. Meanwhile, to try and buy Orion more time to like track down Starman or whatever. Highfather and Darkseid are unleashing this massive power between both their planets to try and buy him time with whatever force is about to destroy the universe. Yeah,
so this is the same power that split the third world into the fourth world. That is why New Genesis and Apocalypse.
Yeah, it was the energy that was created when they split apart. So they're kind of like fusing again or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is very interesting because to put them on the same side, right? Like I realize this issue is all about balance, and I'm wondering if this is because it's the 6th issue.
That makes sense. Yeah. I like some of the dialogue there where like just before they do it, Darkseid's like, I pity you, Highfather, and Highfather's like, and I love you, Darkseid. Like it's like the alternative terms. I don't know. It was interesting.
No, it was good. Yeah, it was very on brand for both of them.
Yeah, and the kids are entertaining again. They're arguing about video games. There's more grapes, as you expect.
He was supposed to be burgers, but he loves grapes so much that's all he bought.
Yes, and like they want dinner, and they just brought grapes back. So you've got that, and so the running thing with this Green Team one who survived is that he's been cut off from his finances. The main one, Commodore, has cut him off from everything. So he's realizing that as he goes to the bank and tries to take out money. He tries to call Commodore, who ends up hanging up on him, and he's getting livid and angry, and he's like, you're killing me. He yells in front of Jack Ryder, who's out in front of the building. So he's like getting desperate, and he's on the run from Manhunter, but he's been kind of left out to dry. So it's really setting up Commodore as the
main villain.
But anyway, actually, which reminds me of the other thing about the Green Team stamp on the Dr. Fate helmet that I wanted to mention is that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time that the Green Team side of the plot has in any way connected with the Dingbat side of the plot, because there's like 4 or 5 plot threads going on, but they're kind of split into 2 camps where obviously Warlord, Starman, and all that feeds into Orion, and it feeds into the Dingbats, who feeds into Lady Cop. But then,
but they're all very compartmentalized for the most part.
Yeah, but they're all connected to each other. Whereas on the other side of the coin, you've got the Green Team, which connects to Manhunter, which connects to all that stuff, right? But that and Jack Ryder, and that all feels very separate. Green Team being stamped on this Dr. Fate helmet I think is the first time that there's like a connection that crosses over between those two
between
sides.
the green team and the right. So this is what led me to do a little bit of research about the green team and the Dingbats, right? And so basically both of them were created by Jack Kirby. One was created by Joe Simon. I think it was also the green team to pop up for the Newsboy Legion, which had disappeared from the pages of Superman and stuff. They wanted a new version of those. And so the point of the green team was they were teen billionaires. That was, in order to join the green team, you had to have $1 billion, which in the 70s, that's like, you might as well say $1 trillion, right? And so each of them came from different aspects, right? So you had the Commodore, who was from a shipping family. You had the oil one, who I'm forgetting his name right now, right? Then you had the movie guy who was all about finding the next star. That's where he made
the producer. Yeah, but obviously he was killed last issue.
Right. And so now you have the fourth guy, who I believe his name's Abdul. He got his money from a glitch in the bank because he was just a shoe shine kid. He was a kid with just a regular job, went to put money in the bank, and there was a glitch that ended up leaving him with over $1 billion, right? So in order to counteract these teen billionaires, what they were going to do is they were going to have the Dingbats of Danger Street, who were just your average street urchin kids. And there's 4 of them and 4 of the green team. And that's what kind of focused on. So I think it's very curious now that we are missing one Dingbat and we're getting down to where there's might be only one green team member.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's all about, to me, all about that balance again.
So basically, to tie this into the other plots here thematically, you've got Darkseid, you've got Highfather, you've got Apocalypse, and you've got New Genesis. You similarly have the green team being the dark side of things, and you've got the Dingbats potentially being the likable, New Genesis team. And not that they've got anything to do with those things. I just mean in terms of the yin and the yang, the two sides. The matching equal parts. But what gets me about this is that Abdul character, right? He has more in common with the Dingbats than he does the green team, right? He came from the streets. So when he's telling Manhunter, I'm not like the other ones, right? I did things to get to this point that the other ones didn't do. I'm a wild card. I thought that was all very curious, and then I'm sure we'll get to that, to the back part. There's an interesting scene where Lady Cop's talking to the coroner, and they're like, "Why did they steal the kid?" Because they were trying to revive the dead body, right? And obviously they don't get to that conclusion. They never consider that's what they were trying to do. Right. They're like theorizing, maybe they just wanted to like hide the body, because if there's no body, then there's technically no crime or something.
There's no crime, right?
But ultimately that's kind of weird. But something I never considered up until this point is the coroner mentions, and that muscly guy we got, which is the one that they killed. It was Atlas.
Right.
Like, hey, we've got this muscly guy in here. What do we do with him? And like, we don't know yet. But I do think it's interesting that they've pointed out that we have that dead body lying in the town,
in the slab.
Yeah. So very, very interesting kind of like stuff to point out here. But yeah, as the book's sort of gearing up to end, Abdul, as you just reminded me who his name was, this green team member who's on the run, he goes to someone, he knocks on a door, and she's basically telling him to piss off, and he's like, no, please, I'm desperate, I've got no money, or I do have money, but you can't access it, so it's kind of a lie. Right. And she gives in and lets him in, even though she doesn't want to, because he kind of betrayed them. And it turns out he actually comes from this group of misfits, and she refers to this group as the Outsiders, which up until this point, we have been kind of leaning towards that's a fake thing that doesn't exist, that they're just using as a scapegoat. Right. This boogeyman that they can use to influence people. But it turns out there is a team called the Outsiders, and it's this weird group of, different mutant characters, effectively.
Doom Patrol cast-offs, if you ask me.
I mean, the girl who was at the door, because you only see her face at first, but when you see her full body, she looks kind of like she's got the body of the Thing, but with like flippers for hands. Right.
She's like very scaly looking.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the color of her skin plus the blue tank top made me think of Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I got Fantastic Four vibes. Yeah. But there's like a lizard looking dude, there's like a Cyclops with one eye. Huh? There's a dude with like a red kind of face, there's like a big brain looking individual, and then
Yeah.
there's someone in like a little go-kart who we don't even see from the front, we only see him from behind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so there is an actual outsiders, and it's almost like, are they saying that he came from this group? This was his dingbats, and he's
Right.
even though visually there's nothing weird about Abdul, he looks like a normal
Yeah.
kid.
But who knows with all that money, right?
Mm.
Who knows what he's done? You know, like
Okay.
has he changed himself? We don't know. And this, so I looked these guys up. This is new. These are all, as far as I know.
Okay.
I couldn't find
Interesting.
anything in the canceled Cavalcade that lines up with this, because when you look up the Outsiders, the first thing that comes up is the Patreon book that you've been reading.
Yeah,
the origin.
the Batman's team. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So nothing. So this is, to me, as far as I know, this is all original.
Yeah, one little plot detail here that might be important later is when he says he has money. Mary, the character, she says, "We know you have money. You stole. We're the ones you stole it from. Remember." So that might be something that we expand upon in the future. So very interesting. So because I know you looked him up and he said he got his money from a glitch. It feels like there might be more to it in this story.
Yes. And that's why when he's telling the Manhunter, I'm different than the rest of them, right? He screwed over his friends, it seems like. Yeah. He stole from them to go, take from them to go build himself an empire. Because we're still not sure what exactly his specialty in the Green Team was, right? Like, how there's the oil guy and there's the shipping guy and the producer. He was just one of the Green Team. So I'm curious to see, where he came from.
Yeah, also just mentioned briefly is a scene where Jack Ryder goes up to talk about the fact that he saw Abdul yelling outside, and Commodore just kind of says, it's a PR thing. He did something he shouldn't have, and we can't really go into it, but he's been let go, kind of thing. Which I don't think you ever see him though. They actually keep Commodore off panel, even in the scene that he's talking to someone. They keep him kind of mysterious, which makes me wonder: has he got a new look because he's put himself in this position as the only, the green one, the green individual, the green man, whatever they're going to call him now.
The Almighty, yeah.
So. I don't know. It's another solid issue. Like I think this one doesn't stand out to me as much as some of the recent issues. Not because there's anything wrong with it, just because those had bigger, more exciting story beats. But this was still a great continuation of everything. And the fact that we're sitting here talking about all these plot threads and even the exciting possibility that because you assume that eventually the two sides of this story that are very separate right now are going to come together. And to an extent, even all the New God stuff feels very separate to everything for the most part as well.
Right. Because, they unleashed that power and, to aid Orion, right? Because it feels like they need someone to do Atlas's job of holding everything up. So, we'll see where all that leads to. But yeah, just that whole scene with High Father kind of in the garden and, Darkseid in his, endless wasteland, that was, again, all that balance tape stuff. That image was super cool as they're unleashing the power. But, this book is so good. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's juggling all these plot threads and characters. It's doing something, very interesting with most of the characters that the vast majority of people will never have heard of. Yep. And it's building a narrative around them that all feels like it's very layered and has a lot to say. And we don't quite have the full picture yet of what it's saying, but we're building it up and we're getting there, and that's part of the fun of reading it and talking about it. And Fornés art, unsurprisingly, is very strong once again. So, I feel like he's almost at a deficit or a disadvantage, I should say, compared to because he did Rorschach, and Rorschach was such a tour de force with his artwork that this is excellent. And it's just sadly, I don't know if it's ever going to be quite as memorable as his Rorschach art, but it's still very, very strong and is doing really great things with the sequential storytelling.
I feel like he took more chances with some of the art in Rorschach because the story itself was a kind of more based down, kind of like this hard-boiled detective story as we're unveiling all these layers. Whereas I feel here, King's really going out of his way to the story, and Fornés is doing a bang-up job nonetheless, but I feel like he's taking less chances and it's more straightforward in his storytelling.
I
Does that
think
make sense?
this is juggling a lot more different types of character and like, tones, which means that it doesn't necessarily. Whereas Rorschach was just like uber focused. It's got one style that it is going to do exceptionally well.
I just go back to that one issue in Rorschach that played with the colors, with the different timelines, and stuff like that. And here we're juggling different timelines, but they're all they're all very much, I feel like, based in the same world. And we're just jumping around. So
they're not different timelines. They're all happening concurrently.
No, same. When I mean timelines, different spots, these different stories.
Plot threads.
There we go. Plot threads. So it's again less risk taking and more straightforward, but that's okay. That's what the story's calling for. Because to me, a lot of the risk taking is being done through the story and not so much the art.
Yeah. So what you rate in Danger Street issue 6?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's not the best issue it's had, but not because there's anything wrong with it by any means, just because it didn't quite hit me as hard as maybe the last 2 issues did. But excellent stuff. Can't wait to the next one. Can't wait till King's next. He's doing Wonder Woman. I don't know if he's got another 12 issue thing planned, but I'm sure there's something at some point. So, all right, very good. All right, so every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you can make myself or Connor read a book at one of the higher tiers. Well, there's limited slots, admittedly.
Yes.
There can't be tons of them. But I of course, have been, ever since I finished Animal Man, I am working through Batman and the Outsiders from the 80s. We had like a 2-part kind of intro to the team over the first 2 issues, and this one kind of like takes us to the next step. I think what I thought was interesting though is that we're definitely in a more serialized era of comics, even though it's still quite obviously far back by today's standards, because a lot of this issue is like we actually start with a team. We tease a villain at a chemical plant. The villain of this issue is Agent Orange, who's this guy who wants to spray orange chemicals on everyone. So he's like sneaking out of plants and chemical warehouses and things like that and stealing shit. And he kills a security guard in the first page. But when we come back to our main characters, it does a couple of interesting things. Is that we actually see the characters leave Markovia. So it's very much in continuity. It's not just like I feel like an older comic, it might have just like cut to them. Oh, they're already a team. They've got a base and whatever. But this issue takes the time to say, this is them leaving, and it does so from the perspective of Brian, of Geoforce, who we hear a bit of his narration. We see him say goodbye to his brother. He's vowing to come back, trained to be the hero of Markovia, all that stuff. But we hear what he thinks as he's like flying alongside the black plane, and he's looking at this team and going, "What a bunch of weirdos! I'm teaming up with a girl with amnesia and this weird Japanese assassin chick and." Metamorpho's just weird. And then there's Batman, right? And he's like, okay, I hope this is the right choice. So I thought it was really smart to start off with the perspective this issue of one of the other members who's not Batman, to like sort of say, okay, let's make it clear that these are also the main characters of this book, and let's have one of them have their thoughts on what's happening as we start off. But it takes time to establish that Bruce has bought them a penthouse for the 2 girls to live in, so Katana and Halo are going to live in this penthouse that he's bought, and then the base for the Outsiders is kind of like a cave underneath that. There is some like you have to just kind of go with it stuff with like Batman's secret identity, because I didn't realize it was going to take the time to so Batman calls ahead to Alfred and says blah blah blah, and Alfred actually recognizes like there's a code in what he said, which basically means I'm bringing people to the Batcave, but I need the secret identity to stay intact. And I was like, oh, that's quite smart. They've put that in. And I thought that was a really neat little touch. But then almost the very next panel made me laugh, because they're flying over Wayne Manor, and like Batman just flat out admits that this is Bruce Wayne's house and that he pays for a lot of Batman stuff. And I'm like, I'm just going to have to accept that none of these characters are instantly going to go, wait, so you're Bruce Wayne then, right? Right? Because they should, and they don't. So
suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, this is just like an old school comics thing. This is just, You just have to go with it and accept it.
It's like Tony Stark is Iron Man's benefactor.
Yeah, it's all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but they react to the Batcave. The villains like assemble in a little team, and it's basically just a team of soldiers who all have orange berets on because orange is his color. He's Agent Orange, right?
Still love the Agent Orange is responsible for so much bad stuff from the 70s, and now in the 80s they were making him a generic comic book villain.
Well, his motivation, he's like riling because his soldiers aren't happy that he blew up somewhere because some people died when he blew up this power plant or this chemical plant, and he's like, I don't care about them. They didn't care about you when you came back from Vietnam and you couldn't get a job and they called you child killers. No. We have to, take back this country. So it is hitting on some political stuff. And keep in mind, this is the early 80s, so it's only been a decade or so since.
Yeah, it's still fresh in their minds.
But I laughed though, because for some reason, their base where they're working out of, this Agent Orange and his men, they're in Gotham Square Garden, which looks exactly like Madison Square Garden. And I'm like, how did they get the arena? Like, how is that their base?
Man, I just know it costs a fortune to run Madison Square Garden, so these guys must be loaded.
Yeah. Well, no, they're treating it like it's empty, like it's abandoned or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I tell a lie. In the panel, there's a thing here. There's a little sign on the panel that says scheduled for demolition. So it's not being used. So
gotcha.
Why is Gotham Square Garden being demolished?
Yeah.
Are they building something bigger?
Yeah, maybe they're building the akin to the Prudential Center down the road in Bloodhaven, but they'll still call it Gotham.
Oh, now I'm thinking about it, though, they basically had the equivalent of this, may have even been the same name in the new Batman movie, didn't they? I
was going to bring that up, but, I couldn't remember the exact details.
I don't know if they call it Gotham Square Garden, but it's clearly based on Madison Square Garden, that building in that movie. And so I think it's funny that's clearly been something that's, like, I don't necessarily think that's a callback to like any comics necessarily. It could be. It could, Matt Reeves could have done it because he knew this, but at the same time, it's also such an obvious thing to just be like, oh, they've got Madison Square Garden, but we'll call it Gotham Square Garden because Gotham.
Gotham in Batman's early days, everything was a wreck. So if you had to guess that there'd be a shuttered arena, you're just doing some. Yeah.
So. Bruce takes Halo out to like a doctor because she's got amnesia. She doesn't know who she is. So we even have Bruce like taking her around as if he's doing a favor for Batman, and no one questions it. But whatever. I sound like I'm shitting on this. I actually really enjoyed this issue. I love this stuff. I really do. Like, I love that it took the time to like sort of establish how he's setting them all up. Sort of, while the villain's sort of like gearing up what he's doing. Like, a lot of the stuff with the main characters is like establishing, okay, we've got this base now, we're dealing with Halo because she's got amnesia, and she starts playing a piano in the reception area for the doctor, and they're like, oh, you can play piano. That this is a hint for who you used to be. You've got an aptitude, they call it specifically. But she picks a name. She picks Gabrielle and decides that for short she'll be called Gaby. Not Gabby. They specifically say Gaby that rhymes with maybe.
That's such a silly pronunciation for that.
I know. Yeah, it's only one B, but still.
Right.
It's spelled appropriately. There is like a little moment here where when she picks her name, Bruce like sort of like lifts up her hand and kisses her hand and says, welcome, Miss Gabrielle Doe. That's the thing, she keeps the last name Doe. She thinks Doe is a good surname. What?
Her name is Gaby Doe.
Well, she says Doe is a good surname, but Jane's kind of dull. I'm like, but Doe is the part of Jane Doe that you don't like? What? Anyway.
Oh boy. 80s comics were a vibe.
So I'm sure he's just playing up the Playboy thing, but there was a little moment where my eyebrow almost went up where I'm like, wait, Bruce, are you trying to bang this teenager? Because that's what it almost feels like here. He's not. I don't think he is. I think it was just like a little moment and then we moved on. And he's buying her clothes and all the rest of it. But he gets a penthouse, or one of his old penthouses for Katana and Halo, and sets them up there. There's a cool little moment here, actually, where Black Lightning, when the rest of them come over, Black Lightning says, hey, do you think it's a good idea to have those two being roommates, given that, this Katana lady might be a bad influence in Halo, because Halo's, this younger, she's a teenager. They establish she's about 17 here.
Okay.
And Batman, his response is actually quite cool. He responds saying, no, I think it'll be good for Katana to have a young person around to lighten things up. And as he says that, there's a panel of like the classic Batman and Robin swinging in the city, and he's basically saying, no, like having a Robin around did wonders for him. So he thinks it will be good for Katana to have this younger woman to like look out for and be like a positive. But I thought that was just a nice little touch to like sort of tie in what his logic is. But he shows them their base underneath this penthouse, and he gets a call from Alfred about Agent Orange being up to stuff, or specifically some of his henchmen digging up toxic waste. There's a farm that the government's like buried toxic waste in, and these two henchmen are digging it up because they want the toxic waste. So Batman shows up and beats them up. But then Halo and Katana show up, even though he told them to stay behind. And, Agent Orange is about to maybe kill Halo. I mean, we don't know for sure if he's like gas will kill her, because, she's super powered. But there's a great panel here where, so Agent Orange has got this it's like a gas mask style outfit, right? That's orange. But he's got that sort of old school thing where it's like a hose coming out of where the mouth is. Okay. To his suit, somewhere in his suit. Right. So there's a panel here where he's about to fire his chemical sprayer at Halo, and you just see the Katana cut the hose. It's just the blade comes into frame and does it. It's just a really nice moment. So yeah, they race after the villains. They're able to take down one helicopter, Geoforce, and that. Katana's blocking bullets with her blade to protect Black Lightning. But Batman basically is dragged by Geoforce while he's flying to go after the second helicopter, which has Agent Orange himself in it. So they're chasing him. Big helicopter scene. The helicopter drops the chemical bomb towards Gotham, right? So it's falling. And basically, Metamorpho turns into like a big cup, and Geoforce tries to contain it with his powers. So they basically stop it from spreading. They contain it, stop it, it's all fine. And there's a great little moment here, actually, where they're kind of celebrating. Halo hugs Geoforce, and they're like, shit, we should go help Batman. Because Batman basically jumped onto the helicopter while they went to deal with the missile. And they see the helicopter explode in the distance, and they're like, oh no, it can't be. And then the next couple of panels is Batman swimming through the water with Agent Orange in his hand. It's basically so it's basically like a to them, because they're rookies, they think Batman just died, but the readers of course are like, no, of course Batman didn't just die. So they kind of gloss over how he takes in the villain. It's just kind of treated like a, which is actually really smart in a way, because like I said at the start of this issue, we're focusing on the perspectives of the new characters more than we are Batman. Which is smart because it makes them feel like they're more prominent characters. It makes us connect with them a bit more, and it feels more like a team book than just Batman with some weird supporting characters. It feels more like it is a team book, and I really like that, especially since some of them are new characters and need to be established. The one little tidbit at the end is that when they come back to the arena and all of Agent Orange's men are there, sort of being contained by the others, Batman rips off his mask to reveal to the others, because earlier on when he was talking to all of his men, he's basically been claiming that his face was disfigured from stuff like Agent Orange, and that's part of his motivation. He's like, we're going to drop the chemicals on the city that ruined me, and Batman rips off his mask and he's completely fine. He was just using it as political speak to control them. So they're all pretty, yeah. So it basically just ends with Batman saying, as long as there'll be assholes like this, there'll be a need for my team. So motivation. So really cool. It's worth mentioning here that it's after this issue that the teaser issue, the introductory issue that I did at the start of this, that's where that slots in continuity wise. Gotcha. So just for reference. But no, it was a really enjoyable issue. It's probably my favorite of the three so far. I think I like that there is a sense of continuity, that it does feel like it's got that running thing of we're establishing that they have these personalities and relationships with each other, we're establishing how we're dealing with these characters. You know, whether it's although there is one kind of dated moment with Batman actually, where when he tells Katana and Halo to like run after some of the goons, he says, "Take them alive, if you can." And I thought, modern Batman would never say "if you can." He would just say, "Take them alive." So
he'd look at Katana and say, "You leave the heads attached."
Yeah. So that felt a little bit like out of character to me, but that's more of a like a, you know, just a time thing where Batman. Well, he was never a killer. Well, maybe he was back in like the 40s, but you know, everyone was different back in the 40s in comics. Like, you know, things hadn't been like properly solidified yet as like what the characters, you know, were. But that just stuck out to me as a line. It's like, okay, you would never have him say that now, but no, really, really good, solid, ongoing comic book stuff. And I'm enjoying seeing how the team interact and learning about, you know, like Halo. I barely know anything about, to be honest. So. I
was just researching as you were talking what her power set and stuff is, and it's all very interesting.
Yeah,
and her actual origin, which I don't think you've gotten to yet. She has amnesia, so
yeah, I'm sure that'll come up. I'm sure that's something that the book's building to. So
it's very, very interesting. You can't, you know, it might be the most intriguing thing about her. So.
So yeah, no, solid stuff. And you know they are, of course, is of its time, but I think it's really solid in like, you know, simple things like Bruce like taking Halo around to get, you know, buy dresses and stuff because she needs clothes, or like all these moments. Like these moments are fun to read as well, even though they're a bit more simplistic by today's standards. Is, you know, because it's easy for the stuff with the cool gas mask and like the orange chemicals to stick out because it's these big bombastic moments. The helicopter chase at the end is quite fun, you know. So it has memorable visuals, which is good. So, yeah, I'd probably give us a solid 8 out of 10, to be honest. You know, it's of its time, sure, but it's a really solid comic book. So, I'm into it. All right, there you go. That'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and our top 5 books of the week. Which I read 5 books this week, so yeah, I can actually rank 5 books. Makes a difference. All right, panel / moment, Matt. What do you have?
I really liked seeing the Space Dolphins and Superman. That was great. That 4-page like flip in Stargirl, but might as well be from Green Lantern, and it's gonna be the first page appearance of Hal when you turn the page, and he's, you know, shining green in the dark, saving the miners. That was really cool.
Okay, what am I picking? I think it's probably something from Danger Street. I just don't know what yet.
I mean, if I was picking from Danger Street, it would be the middle fingers in the pool.
Oh,
So that was a wild moment. Or the reveal of the Green Team logo on the Helm of Fate.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah. I'd probably like to see it in the morgue, actually. That had a really cool vibe to it. But actually, maybe all in, maybe just like Starman casually sitting up and like taking off the rope as they're arguing about a video game is a really funny moment. Yeah,
that's pretty fun.
I'm gonna go with that. All right, cover of the week. I didn't have any, like, there was no time this episode where you had a book and I didn't, so I didn't have time to properly look.
Gotcha. I can vamp then if you want to look real quick.
Yeah, go. What would you want?
Yeah, so Green Lantern, there's a couple. The main cover is really nice. I believe that's Xermanico. But there is a cover as it's loading, because of course it's taking forever now.
What about the Sinestro one, the hoodie? Do you like that one?
That one's okay. Yeah, that's a Luca Perillo. But no, there's the Ariel Cologne of Hal and Carol at a fair, and he's made a big mallet, so he's gonna do like this test of strength. Yeah, that one's really cool.
Yeah, that one does look quite good. I do think Hal's body's a little bit weird shaped, but the overall vibe of it's really good. I like the colors and the texture
the
of
Sampier thumbs up from the pilot.
That's not bad. Yeah, that's good.
Hal's flying in formation with them. So that's real cool. Stargirl has a Sauvage variant that looks really nice. very different from the other Savage artwork from the Power Girl book. It looks kind of Bartel-esque with the colors and all of that. That looks super, super nice. What are some of the other ones this week that really stood out? Of course, I hit the wrong button and now I'm back. Superman Lost has a couple. There's Lee Weeks. That's just Clark on a white background. That's really striking. I'm a big fan of that one. And then Danger Street has a Doc Shaner variant of the Dingbats. That looks nice. So
what are you picking though?
For me, it's the Lee Week Superman. I just love how stark it is.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll just go with the regular Green Lantern cover. Interesting that Kilowog's on there and he wasn't in the issue, so I assume he might.
He was referenced though because he was like Hal's confidant.
Yeah, he brings him up, but we never see him. So
yeah.
I suspect we might at some point. But that's cool. And Green Lantern's got a new logo. As in the title of the book's got like a new font and like sort of style, which is nice. So cool. All right, art of the week, Matt. What do you have?
This is the toughest for me because it's either Danger Street or Green Lantern.
Yeah, you got Xermanico, you got Fornés.
Both are my guys. However, I was so taken aback by the art in Green Lantern, I am going to give it to Xermanico.
Yeah, I'll give it to Green Lantern as well. I really, obviously Fornés is great, but I think Xermanico is really good. It's been a little while since we've seen some Xermanico art, so it was a nice fresher breath there, I think. So I would agree with that. All right, Matt, rank your 5 books. Go.
All right, number 1's going to be Danger Street, just by a hair. Number 2 is Green Lantern. 3 is Stargirl. 4 is Spirit World. 5 Superman Lost.
Yeah, number 1 for me is also Danger Street. Number 2 is probably Green Lantern. Number 3, Superman Lost. 4, Stargirl, and 5, Spirit World. No bad books, certainly.
No.
But a lot of 7s for me this week because there was either some taste things or maybe some just issues to bring up, I suppose, on my end. But it was a pretty solid enough, easy to read batch of books, to be honest, overall this week.
Yeah.
So very cool. And I had a good Patreon book, so that's always a nice little capper on the week. So I'll tell you what is coming next week from DC Comics. So we have The Flash 799. We got Batman Superman World's Finest 15, Wonder Woman 799, Superman issue 4, Titans issue 1, Catwoman issue 55, Batgirls issue 18, Superboy The Man of Tomorrow issue 2, Batman The Brave and the Bold, which is an anthology book, that's issue 1 of that, Black Adam issue 11, Cyborg issue 1, and The Vigil issue 1, and then there's a free thing, Dawn of DC Primer issue 1. So we have a few issue 1s next week. We have we got Titans issue 1, I mentioned there, Cyborg issue 1, and The Vigil issue 1, all of which I am interested in to various degrees. So should be an interesting week for actual book discussion next time.
If Titans is as good as I think it's going to be, I'm going to be super annoying. Just letting everybody know.
You're always super annoying. That's
Not as annoying as Connor, though, right?
Well, he's not annoying. He's infuriating. There's a difference.
Also, the world's finest tease of Ultramorpho. Good name. Good name from Wade for a villain.
So yeah, and obviously with these 799s coming, those big 800 specials are going to be coming next month. So look forward to those as well. But yeah, that'll do it though. That's 356 of Comics from the Multiverse. Let us know what you thought of these books in the comments, and of course you can support all the content and support the show and help keep it coming by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us over there, and maybe get the show early at the $5 tier and up whenever it's ready on the Saturday night, which is very late depending on your time zone. But yeah, if that is of interest, go and have a look. But otherwise, that is the show. So thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.